Okay, so solving systems of equations using all three of these methods. One of the hardest things is knowing when is it best to use this method and why. So at the top where it says when to solve by graphing, we're going to start there. So take it and flip it just like this, and notice what your examples are. Notice that in both of these, notice first off, this one has a fraction, and anytime I have fractions, graphing's always going to be easier, okay? Because that fraction right there, this identifies this is your slope, and this tells you the directions. It's going to tell me I need to go down 1 and right 2. Also notice both of them are already set equal to y, and they're in slope-intercept form. So right here on the side where it says this is going to be our reason why we want to use graphing. So both equations are in slope-intercept form. Well, what is slope-intercept form? That's the y equals mx plus b. And then also, if you want to put a little star, make a little note, and fractions. Again, just because I have fractions here, that represents our, it's not always going to represent our slope, but in this case it does. So that's going to tell me my directions I go. So now we're going to solve this one. Now again, remember your solution is all the points that these two equations have in common. Well, because I have different slopes, I know that these two lines are going to cross. They're going to have one point in common, and that's the point I'm trying to find. So now right here, if you just flip it, just like this, okay? So we've got our graph paper here, and I'm going to graph my first line. So I'm going to graph the line -1/2 x plus 3. So if you remember, I've got a y-intercept of 3. So I'm going to start at 3 on my y-axis. And then my slope is -1/2, so that tells me I need to go down 1, right 2. And I'm going to fill my coordinate plane up with points. Up 1, to the left 2. Okay, so I've got my first line graphed. Okay, so now I want to graph my second line, which is y equals -3x minus 2. So I have a y-intercept of -2, so I'm going to go down to 2 on my y-axis. My slope is -3, okay, so if you put that over 1, that tells me I'm going to go down 3, right 1. Okay, I can also go up 3, to the left 1. And so, if you look, what is the point that these two lines have in common? Where do they cross at? Well, they cross at the point -2, 4. So we have a solution of -2, 4. Okay. So now, substitution. So when to solve by substitution? Well, if you remember, substitution is one of the harder methods, and you're replacing, you're plugging in. And so if I look here, substitution might be the easiest route, because notice how x has already been isolated. Anytime you have a variable that's already isolated, use substitution. So x has a value of y plus 4. So over here on the side, why am I going to use substitution? Because one variable is isolated. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my value that I have for x and I'm going to plug it into the x. Okay? So now let's solve that. We've got 2 steps to do this. So flip it. Okay? I'm going to be writing now in the left-hand corner. So my first step is to find y by replacing x. And so we know that x has a value of y plus 4. And so I'm going to take my top function and I'm going to set it up. And inside that parentheses, I'm going to sub in the y plus 4. Okay? So when you do this, you want to make sure that you only see one variable. Okay, so all I see is y. So now I can solve this equation. So distribute. So I have 2y plus 8 minus y equals 18. Combine like terms, so 2y and negative y. Combine to make y. Y plus 8 is equal to 18. And then subtract your 8 from your 18. And y is equal to 10. Okay, so we're halfway done. So the second step, now find x. Okay, so it doesn't matter which equation you use, the top one or the bottom one, but choose the one that makes sense. You see, in this function right here, we know that x is equal to whatever the value of y is plus 4. So I'm going to use that function. And hey, guess what? I know that y is equal to 10. So I'm going to sub in the 10 into the y. And what is 10 plus 4? 14. So x has a value of 14. And so now the point that these two have in common, our solution, is the point 1410. Okay, so I'm going to stop it because my video is getting long, and then the fourth video is going to show the final method.